All right, Kurt, I want to get to John Cena and Randy Orton and other WrestleMania follow-up, but let's start with that TLC match that headlined the show. Joe Tessitore called it an instant classic. The Street Profits retained the titles. The match went about 22, 23 minutes. What did you think?
I thought it was well for the most part. It's just a shame it couldn't really be on the WrestleMania card because of how stacked it was. But at least they got the opportunity to be on the show tonight and actually were given time and given the opportunity to showcase themselves in a way they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. But I'm just glad that they at least got to have this match tonight and it turned out as well as it did. And also more important than that, I'm happy that the Street Profits retained. They just got the belts a month ago. It would have made no sense to take the belts off of them so soon. And I'm glad they got to showcase themselves in this kind of setting, this kind of match. And hopefully this is a good sign of things to come for that tag division. And hopefully they get more chances to shine like they did tonight.
Yeah, for Axiom joining the tag team division. I'm ready to sort out who I want to cheer for.
I get it.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's obviously, DIY are heels and the Machine Guns are sort of, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. They're likable enough, but there's nothing about them where you feel a lot of character development. They're just veterans who finally made it and they're having good matches. And then the Profits have this new refreshed look and attitude, which I like, but I think fans are used to having some sort of guidance or reinforcement of whether they should or shouldn't like somebody. And right now, obviously, they're popping for the Profits because they're hitting a bunch of high spots. They haven't done anything egregious. But do you think that WWE and the Profits would be better off matching them against two wrestlers who are either clearly heels or clearly faces and kind of leaning into that dynamic rather than – because right now they're kind of turning the tag division into what TNA did with the X division some of the time, which is look at these athletes do a bunch of spots. And I want to be emotionally invested in rooting for somebody to win or lose.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of the other feuds now are a lot more defined, like, Naomi and Jade Cargill being one example. But with like Rhea, Bianca, and Io, it was kind of like all over the place. You weren't sure who to cheer for in a sense, even though we got a great match out of it at WrestleMania. But yeah, as far as the Profits go, yes, they would definitely be a lot more worth being invested in if they had more of a defined role on the show as opposed to kind of being tweeners, kind of being good this week and, half and half the week after. But even with that aside, they're still an impressive team. And sometimes I guess if you're as good as they are in the ring, it's kind of hard to root against them.
Yeah.
But there should still be more of like a definition of what they are because it's kind of like still not fully there yet. But hopefully they can make that definition of what they are within the next few weeks, kind of like what they did with Braun Breaker on Raw Monday. And then that'll kind of like give us more of an idea of where they're going and, whether or not we should be behind them and where they're going for that matter.
Based on what you've seen of them in the last, tonight especially, but over the last month or so, what do you think? Are they going for something and I'm not picking up on it? Or do you think they've actually changed their mind a little bit? Or are they kind of like with Braun Breaker waiting for the right moment to really have them definitively go in a certain direction?
I sincerely hope it's the second one you said. I sincerely hope they're like taking their time and we just need to be patient. And then when something does happen with them, we'll like realize we were worried over nothing. But until then, there is a cause to kind of be concerned because that's kind of like really what hurt this build for WrestleMania this year, where we didn't really know who to cheer for in certain cases. We didn't know who was good, who was bad. And it kind of reflected in the WrestleMania we got in the end. Although it wasn't a bad show, it still kind of was a step down from the last few years. So yeah, they need to definitely kind of define better who these people are, whether we should like them or not like them. And another example of that I could definitely think of, especially from her backstage interview tonight, Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
Montez Ford's wife of all people. Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure how long she's going to be gone for with her broken fingers and all that, but when she gets back, I think she has heel turn written all over her. And if not, WWE's messing up big time.
I'm enjoying Bianca seeming in the role that she's in, but it's not clear yet because there's some graciousness to what she says, and then there's an edge to what she says. It feels like it's on the verge of being full-fledged heel. I've sensed mixed signals, perhaps deliberate, with her. I'm just not sure, or maybe she's being smarmy and I'm reading that as gracious. It's hard to tell, but I'm ready for a little guidance from WWE's booking when it comes to that. Kurt, is someone ringing your doorbell, or do you just have a chime on when you get a notification on your computer?
I think there's just something that random that's been happening in the house for the
Oh,
last
okay.
few minutes.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I just didn't. If it was something you had control, I wanted to alert you. There's someone ringing your doorbell.
Oh yeah,
If you didn't
no
know
problem.
if it was going on.
Okay.
So the match itself, Joe Tessitore did a great job calling it, and so did Barrett. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was where did he go? Yeah, I thought it was a good match. Like I said, I kind of wish it had been on the WrestleMania card. Maybe that would have been better if that match had been on WrestleMania as opposed to the New Day and the War Raiders. But at least we got to have it here tonight and got to main event the show with no commercials or any of that jazz. And yeah, I'm happy that they got to have this spot and happy they got to have the match that they did. I personally enjoyed it. The show itself had its moments overall, but
Yeah.
that would probably be the highlight of it if I had to pick anything. That and obviously the opening segment and even Zelina Vega winning the U.S. title, I personally like. Also, her husband's debut, Aleister Black.
Yes. So, couple things. I thought the commercial-free hour was great, starting in the opening minute with a commercial. The last commercial break ran into the second hour, so they lost the ability right away to say it was truly commercial-free. And then we did get the double box break during the Drew McIntyre LA Knight entrance.
I noticed that.
And there were commercials. It was a commercial break. You can split the screen, but if it's audio for a commercial and it's a commercial taking up half our screen, give or take, that's a commercial break. They're still 0 for 5 on claiming they have a commercial-free hour. But it ultimately, I mean, obviously, it was way lighter on commercials, and that TLC match was wonderful, not having a bunch of interruptions and resets. So, in that sense, it was a gift format-wise for the match to be on a SmackDown, because it ended up feeling more like a pay-per-view match, because that's one of the nice things about pay-per-views and PLEs is you don't have commercial breaks during matches. You got 2 hours of commercials on WrestleMania out of 4 hours of content, but at least it isn't mid-match. And in this show, at least the main event wasn't. Was there a highlight in that match for you? Was there anything in terms of the execution, the structure, the spots, the ebb and flow? Talk about the story they told and the spots they did. And what stands out to you?
It's really hard to say. Yeah, honestly, it really is. There was just so much that went on in the match that it's just kind of really hard to pick anything that stood out most.
I'll throw a couple out there that first of all, the ending with Montez doing a springboard onto the ladder, before winning, and then also him climbing the side of the ladder. I don't remember that happening where two wrestlers were on each side, and then someone climbed the side of it. So that was memorable. I thought the downside was Johnny Gargano on a rung of the ladder reaching for the belts, and he couldn't quite reach them, and he spent 10 seconds trying to reach them instead of just climbing another rung or two so he could reach them. He was waiting for a spot. That was the low point of the match, just execution wise. Yeah,
it happens. It is what it is. Not everything is going to be perfect, but at least they came out to play tonight, and the right outcome won. I'm sorry, the right team won. That's what I meant to say.
The right outcome.
But yeah, these guys killed it. It's no better 6 guys you could have asked for to be in this match than these 6 guys. And yeah, my hat's off to all of them.
Another thing that stood out is when Ford did a bunch of dives. I don't know if it was Ford's dive or another spot when his arm got landed. I feel like it was Dawkins who landed on his arm, and he's like, "Get off my arm, get off my arm!" And then he rolled off, and he's like grabbing his arm, and I was like, "Oh God, did something really happen?" And they replayed it. It was hard to tell. He finished the match fine, but the selling was for a match like this, where there's going to be big spots and sort of you unrealistically have to recover quickly. I actually thought they did a good job selling the effects of a lot of spots with facial expressions, body language, and at times how long they stayed down before getting up again. And that doesn't always happen. When you have 3 teams and 6 wrestlers, there's a little bit more time for wrestlers to sell and take a break while others fight. And I thought it was well executed and well timed in that way for this type of match.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And yeah, given the fact that they were given as much time as they were able to do all those things that's supposed to have, rush through it in 10 minutes if they had been on WrestleMania. And yeah, if they can give us more main events like this on SmackDown in the coming months, it'll be more of a watchable show than it was going into WrestleMania. But still, even with it being as good as it is, I still think that 3-hour format is kind of killing it. I think they still need to cut it to 2 hours. Even with the good stuff, it still feels very, very, very long.
I believe around June they're cutting back to 2 hours. They haven't declared it, But they never bragged about it being 3 hours, which was a bit of a tell. They're not boasting that's a positive because they knew it was short term and there would be a pullback to 2. But I think USA has a network, has a show in the pipeline they want to put in that hour. And I was thinking at the end of when Jacob Fatu was holding up the U.S. title at the end of that, and it was about the 2.5 hour mark when Raw would end. And I'm used to a 2.5 hour show now on Netflix, roughly. I was like, that'd be a good ending for the show. I'm kind of ready. Fortunately, the TLC match was good enough. It was, it was an injection of adrenaline. But yeah, 2.5 hours is plenty for wrestling shows. Yeah. Goodfella 1422 says, 2.5 hours is a sweet spot. And Adam Kidd said 3 hours is too long for just about anything. And Brock Benningfield said, 2 hours will be nice. Standard Deviation said, I can't wait for it to be cut back. Kyle Fassel goes so far as to say, I miss 1 hour Raws. LOL. That's really short.
I don't.
Yep. All right, let's pause and introduce ourselves. And then I want to go to more chat comments, including some gushing about Joe Tessitore's announcing of this match and some more on TLC. Then we'll get to the other stuff that happened. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, April 25th, 2025. And I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, and the host of the Wade Keller Post Shows, such as this one that follows SmackDown, also every Monday and Wednesday night, following Raw and Dynamite, respectively. We also, on our YouTube channel, our PWTorch YouTube channel, have post shows after NXT and WWE and AEW weekend live events, the PLEs and pay-per-views. So check them out, and on occasion, even collision shows. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, the PWTorch YouTube channel, if you're watching us there, and set alerts so that you know when we go live. You'll get alerts if you click on that bell. But please do follow us. We want to keep hitting new benchmarks in terms of growth, and that can help. Another thing you can do to help us grow, as all YouTubers talk about, is comment on the show and like the show. So subscribe to the channel, comment below, and like the show. We appreciate it. Constructive criticism, or point out something we forgot, or if you have a disagreement, all that is welcome, or just start a discussion based on anything having to do with, ideally, our comments on the show and our analysis of it. I'm joined today by my co-host, Kurt Cadet. He is a PWTorch contributor and also podcaster. Kurt, welcome back to the co-host chair. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yes, it's definitely been a crazy couple weeks, especially with WrestleMania being last weekend. It was very unfortunate that I couldn't be there. I used to live in Vegas, and it would have been a nice homecoming, but didn't work out that way this year. But overall, I feel like there was still good enough on WrestleMania where I couldn't call it a bad show, even with like some of the really bad stuff that was on there. But I will say the highlight of the whole weekend was Monday Night Raw. That was by far the best Raw after Mania we've seen probably in about a decade. And yeah, it was WrestleMania was. I think it personally was better than SmackDown tonight. Oh yeah. And yes,
it was different. It was very. I mean, this was a wrestling-based show more so, and Raw was very angle and promo heavy. But I'll take it. I mean, we had the graphic we put up on our post show on YouTube on Monday was, Raw after Mania, was this the best one ever? I'm not declaring it such, but I think it was a conversation people were having.
Yeah, I think it's up there with like the 98 Raw after Mania, or the 2002 Raw after Mania, 2008 with the Ric Flair retirement ceremony. Yeah, all those good shows. Yeah, I think it's every bit as up there, possibly even better than them. Just everything on that show hit. Every single last segment hit. There was nothing on that show that was weak. Tonight's show was still good too. I can't really call anything on the show that I would say was bad. But like I said, that time just kind of hurt it a little bit. But is what it is. At least we still got some good wrestling out of it, some good direction for where we're going to for Backlash, and that's all we can really ask for right now.
Speaking of that, there was a question on the Fix mailbag with Todd Martin and me yesterday. We posted it today, but recorded yesterday, about the best Raw after Manias ever, and Todd talked about them and if there were also letdowns. PWTorch VIP membership, quick plug, pwtorch.com/govip, pwtorch.com/govip for details on all the benefits that comes with VIP membership. Bunch of different ways to subscribe through your Apple account, on the Apple app, on your iPhone, Patreon, Spotify, PayPal, credit card. You get a full VIP membership with PayPal or credit card, and you can unlock 35 plus years of archives, 20 plus years of podcasts, hundreds of retro radio shows, including my old KFAN radio show from the 90s, and nearly 2,000 back issues of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. Full details at pwtorch.com/govip. I put up Wade Keller hotlines with news every day of the week this week on WrestleMania week. And we also have our WrestleMania roundtables that I hosted on Saturday and Sunday night that are VIP exclusive with Rich and Todd. Could go on, but I'm going to throw it to Kurt for a plug for one other VIP show. You guys filled in for Javier when he was off for a few weeks, not able to produce Acknowledging WWE. And now you guys have your own show on the VIP side of things, you and Chris Adams, Catching the Culture. I love the opening theme. Talk about comparing what the two comparisons you made between a movie and one I haven't watched in a long time, but now I want to go rewatch it, and WrestleMania.
Yes, I kind of got the idea from kind of being a big movie buff and also being a big wrestling buff. So since that WrestleMania 9 documentary just dropped a couple weeks ago, it had me thinking of like that time frame and also that year for movies. I've always maintained the year 1993 is one of the best years for movies, but in contrast, one of the worst garbage years for wrestling. And since WrestleMania 9 is kind of like the symbolism of that time frame and how garbage the WWE product was, I figured it was a good way to discuss that, but also discuss like the best that Hollywood had to offer during that period, which was that movie Falling Down, which personally I think is a movie that doesn't get enough credit. That's a lot better than people like to talk about. And they came out around the same time. I think Falling Down came out, like roughly around the time that WrestleMania 9 happened. So we kind of compared the defense character, how like he further falls into madness and further loses his mind, as a metaphor to how like Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon at that point were kind of past their peak, and the peak of the 80s boom period was over, and seeing some of the decisions they were making and some of the ways that they were acting was like a metaphor for like how they were falling apart and how they were falling down the wrong path. So that's kind of like some of the comparisons we make, and also just in general how good movies were back then compared to how bad wrestling was back then. And our next episode is actually going to be about the summer of 1989, because that was a big summer for movies. A lot of classics came out that summer, from Batman, Do the Right Thing, Dead Poet Society, a few others. But also that was one of my favorite personal summers for WWE that's built to that SummerSlam. Although I know the Zeus character people weren't a fan of, I did enjoy that build to that match with Zeus and Savage against Hogan and Beefcake, also the Warrior and Rick Rude match. So we're going to kind of compare what was going on in Hollywood that summer, what was hot at the box office compared to what was hot at WWE, and how it concluded with that SummerSlam, one of my personal favorites.
Another VIP exclusive show, NXT 8 Years Back with Kelly Wells and Tom Stelp, also includes a lot of movie talk. I know Brandon LeClaire, who hosts Wrestling Night in America, is a co-host on this show a lot, is a big movie buff too. I know I'm leaving people off. We have a lot of people very into movies. We could have a whole separate channel just talking movies and reviewing them. So I love that you and Chris are doing that, and look forward to more of your shows. And it's another reason to go VIP, people. Check out all the great work that our team is doing. All right. Let's keep rolling through SmackDown here. And go to some comments about Joe Tessitore. I want to throw some love his way. Early on, I thought there was some strengths for him, and he was a little had weird effects, or he was sort of performative. It felt a little put on, a little over the top, even a little patronizing in his delivery. It just felt like a little too much. And man, within like 2-3 weeks, that was all gone. And he had a standout main event he called on like week 3 or 4. And now, and I said this on Monday, and there was a little bit of pushback, but also a little bit of affirmation. He's in the realm of my favorite wrestling announcer ever already. And I know Jim Ross has crazy body of work, and there's, Lance Russell's great at what he did, and Joe Tessitore, Michael Cole's had some good years and some bad years and some mixed years. But I mean, it's too early to declare that, but I'm just saying, like, his work right now checks the boxes for what I look for and advocate in a wrestling announcer. He can call the big matches with credibility and authority. And he treats the business as something he is passionate about that doesn't feel put on. He comes across as somebody who is as invested in what's happening as any viewer at home, but without coming across as just a fan. There's nothing patronizing anymore about what he's doing. It feels like he sincerely is passionate about what's happening. He takes his job seriously, and he does it with sincerity and clarity. And I think tonight was a showcase for him. Some chat room comments agreeing with me. Derek Mitchell said, Wade, I agree with you. Joe Tessitore has quickly turned into a great WWE announcer. My one criticism of him, too many 5-star match mentions. It has been so tarnished because of Dave Meltzer. A comment from Four Eyes Malone said, this was my favorite night hearing Tessitore's commentary. And CJ LaChapelle says, Joe Tessitore is awesome. And Kyle Fassel said Tess sounded like Morrow tonight a lot to me during the ladder match. I think there was another comment here I wanted to grab. Kyle Fassel just said Tess is really up there with me after tonight. So just shout out to him. Besides a wrestling commentator, analyst, and reporter, I also feel like I'm a media critic. I talk about the production of the shows. I review announcers. I think that's part of my job. And I'm hard on announcers who I don't think do good work. I call them out when they I credit them when they get better. Joe Tessitore deserves a couple minutes of just being spotlighted and praised. Kurt, anything you want to add to that?
Oh yeah, Joe Tessitore has been great. I remember the first time I heard him, like when he debuted a few months ago, like his voice, I guess, sounded a little like non-enthusiastic. It sounded professional, but I guess it didn't really have like that enthusiasm in life that, Jim Ross has or Vince McMahon had when he was an announcer. But over time, he's really grown on me. I feel like his tone of voice just like really fits the show.
Yep.
Definitely gotten better over time, and I think Wade Barrett is the perfect partner for him. That's another person I think is very good and very underrated is him, and especially considering how like over the top Pat McAfee could be at times. Although he is entertaining, sometimes it could be a little much. Wade Barrett, I feel like, is more of like a healthy balance, and yeah, he's like very professional and like has that experience, but he's also very funny, very entertaining, and yeah, just has like more of a mellow personality for it as opposed to McAfee. But Joe Tessitore, yeah, he's really grown on me in these recent months. And it felt like they were trying for a while to find like that, next person for Michael Cole, or like that person to maybe somewhat replace him one day. But I think they definitely found it in him. And he's the best one they've had, I would say, since Mauro Ranallo, who is incredible. Yep. He wasn't around long enough.
Yep. Doesn't add the vocabulary and the pre-planned phrases that Morrow did, which was sort of hit or miss, which I'm glad.
Mamma mia.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say Morrow had his he wanted to have famous catchphrases, and he would lean on them a lot, and I thought too much. I understand doing that. There's a level of it that's kind of fun and cute. There's also a point where you're making it about yourself. The thing about Joe Tessitore that I actually thought this tonight, and I'm glad I just thought to mention it, is he doesn't make anything about himself. He knows he is there to enhance the matches and serve the viewers. At the end of the TLC match, it sounded like he was about to say something about how this was his first chance to ever call a TLC match. And he didn't. I'm so used to announcers making things about them. He said this was the first TLC match for the tag team titles in 5 years, and it might take 50 years of recovery from what we just watched. I thought he was going to say this was my first TLC match. He didn't. He's so good about he's not a mark for becoming the star. He is there to serve the product and the audience, and he does it. Someone in the chat said Gordon Soley as well. Yes, Derek, you know my story, right? I interviewed Gordon Soley for a special summer yearbook that's out of print right now. Back in 1990, I interviewed a bunch of wrestling announcers. Lance Russell, Mick Karsh, Jim Ross. It was just on and on. Just did a whole book of wrestling announcer interviews. And Gordon Soley was one of them. And most of them I did by phone. But I interviewed Gordon Soley in person. I believe it was in Baltimore, because I think it was a Baltimore Omni. And we had a 10 a.m. interview before he had to go on to production. He answered the door in his boxer shorts with martini in his hand. It was vintage Gordon Soley. Oh, and a cigarette in his hand, too. And his hotel room reeked of cigarettes. He already was drinking. And he had to put some clothes on, and then he gave me a halfway decent interview. It wasn't the best of the book, but he was quite a character, and it's a fun little anecdote and story to tell. All right. Kyle Fassel just says, I love Jim Ross calling out stuff in AEW on commentary. So unhinged. And Standard Deviation says, Jim Ross is still ahead for me because he sounds more natural to me at capturing the emotion in the melody. Oh, no, I'm not ready to declare Tessitore's body of work better than Jim Ross or his peak moments better than Jim Ross. I'm just stirring a little bit up by saying he's starting to enter the conversation this early in his run as maybe my favorite. Jim Ross, absolutely. Peak Jim Ross is the best.
Number one.
Yep. Wade, what's your opinion of Tony Schiavone? I think Tony Schiavone's affable. He's nice. But I don't think he's been a peak A level announcer. He's in the shadow of Jim Ross. Now he's more of a legendary, friendly pal who calls wrestling alongside you. But I just don't think his peak announcing reached what Tessitore is doing now or what Jim Ross did. But he's a legend. I mean, he's a legend. He's been around for a lot, and he's versatile. He can do the interviews in the ring. He hosted at the Podium, those WCW Saturday night shows, and has been around for a lot. And I think he's been a voice and face of wrestling for a long time. And I'm glad that he had this chapter in AEW to do. All right, so let's shift to Kurt, the John Cena segment at the beginning.
Oh yes,
and Randy Orton. I liked it. I'm getting the sense that Chad didn't like it. I'm finding myself having issues with Cena, but almost feeling like people are being harder on his performances than I feel is merited. But I always feel like I've been that way about Cena's corniness. I find an element of that authentic because that's just who he is. I don't feel like he's a bad actor. I think he's just being himself. And some of that is what caused him to be booed as a lead babyface. I thought Randy Orton had an advantage tonight by being able to go back 25 years. I like that he talked about this as bizarre world. I'm the good guy. You're the bad guy. And I like Cena going, the reason I don't have kids is because I raised all your guys' kids, the crowd, for 25 years. And all you brats, and I don't want to have anything to do with them anymore. I thought there was some good stuff in this one, but what'd you think, Kurt?
Yeah, I thought it was great too. I especially love that one line where he said that, the reason why I don't want kids, the reason why I don't have kids is because I've been spending all my time raising yours, and I did an impeccable job. And then he points out that little kid in the front who flips him off. He's like, oh, look, a 6-year-old flipping the bird, real mature, real nice,
Yep.
Great parenting, great job. And then he talks about the guy in the audience like, yeah, you're a loser. You see, kid, your dad's a loser. Yeah, it was good stuff. And now with the Cena heel run, now we don't have to wonder if The Rock's going to show up, if The Rock's going to come, or if The Rock's going to be the center of it. Now Cena can just focus more on whatever feud he's in. And with this feud with Orton going in the Backlash, it's probably more than likely just a one-off, which is fine, but it's a good direction to go in. And yeah, for Cena's retirement tour, we figured we would get him and Orton one more time, but it's going to be different and it's going to be fun in the sense that, for one, it's Randy Orton's hometown of St. Louis, so it's going to be electric in there. And for two, the roles are reversed. We have never had heel John Cena against babyface Randy Orton before. It really feels weird. It really feels strange. It kind of feels like Denzel being the bad guy in the movie and Russell Crowe being the good guy in the movie, like an American Gangster. But regardless, it could still work.
So I wrote on PWTorch.com, or for VIP members, the ad-free version, PWTorchVIP.com. I cover Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown live during the shows every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Almost every Wednesday. I took Wednesday out from the written report because I had something to do for overlapped some of the show, so I couldn't catch up on the show in time for the post show and also do a written show. But so when I say all the time, almost all the time. But tonight I wrote what you pointed out, that the St. Louis setting is perfect for this. And Cena going, I don't want to face you tonight. I want you to be with your family in St. Louis, and basically he's implying I want to end your dreams of ever holding this championship, the authentic, full lineage. It's a little bumpy on the way with name changes and such, but this belt that has that they're, at least in storyline and canon, claiming has an uninterrupted lineage, and I'm going to retire it. So if you want to win another title, it's going to be this tinfoil imposter. So I'm going to end your dreams in St. Louis in front of your family. It works out well. And you said, it's Randy said it's bizarre world. And you said, yeah, it's like role reversal. Having Randy in St. Louis and the fact that they've added that already to the story of the match is going to add a Sami Zayn in Montreal expectation to this, a vibe to it that I think is going to really enhance the match. I know we've seen it a lot, but it's been a long time since we saw it. And I'm glad we're seeing Randy against Cena again. There's plenty of good wrestling out there, Kurt. Like, there's so much good wrestling to watch. I don't hold it against a match when it isn't going to be great and just go, well, now I'm going to just rip on it. Cena and Orton aren't here to have a match that lives up to what the women did in the opener on night one, or what Will Ospreay is going to do at All In. I mean, it's just like, that's not what they're there to do. They're there to tell a different kind of story at the stage of their careers, and I'm fine with it. I think that the promo work tonight was a good start, and I'm looking forward to more of it in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I don't expect this to be a match of the year candidate. I just kind of interested in it more for the atmosphere, for the role reversal, and just to see them, share the ring one last time. I mean, would you reject the fact that you're getting this match just because it's not going to be the best match ever? No, you just enjoy it for what it is. Just like Rock and Hogan. Rock and Hogan by no stretch was a 5-star masterpiece or the best match you've ever seen, but just that atmosphere, the moments they captured in that match, that's what made it legendary. That's what made it a classic WrestleMania match. And I don't know if this match will be on that level per se, but I think it'll still be fun. And anything beats that Cody Rhodes and Cena match we got at WrestleMania. So even if this is not great or anything like that, it can't be any worse than that was.
Love it. I love your facial expression adding to your comment. So here's some chat room comments, pro and con on Cena. We'll respond to this. Standard Deviation says, I really like Cena's promo. I'm enjoying him a lot more in this role than I ever did when he was a babyface. Kyle Fassel said, Cena is believable as a heel. But Glenn B., who's been ripping on Cena's segment throughout tonight in the chat, this promo is absolutely foul. Cena clearly doesn't believe in anything he is saying. And if Cena was facing himself in this promo, it's the first thing he would have said. Interesting. Chris Johnson said Cena's performance was fine, just didn't love the substance of the promo. Feels like he's trying too hard. Nothing about this feels natural. Four Eyes Malone says the irony of Orton and Cena is Orton seems at peace finally after being so despicable forever, and Cena's turning into a character of someone who always seemed okay, but is truly miserable inside.
Interesting.
Yeah. So interesting comments there. Yeah. So what do you make of any of those comments?
I really like that one specifically because of the fact that it does kind of describe where they are right now, where like Randy Orton's like more at peace. Randy Orton's like a family man. Yeah. He's like a much different person than he was 20 years ago. And John Cena is kind of like, I guess, going through a midlife crisis. He's about to retire. He had like one foot out the door, but he kind of has like this need to like lash out at the ones who have hated on him for so long one last time, and like not sure how to accept it or how to see it. And The Rock's comments the other day on Pat McAfee saying, John Cena's not a bad guy. John Cena's a good guy. He's just telling the truth, but he's a good guy. He's a good guy. That doesn't help either. No. But overall, I think he's like doing the best he can with it. I mean, I personally liked what he did tonight. I liked what he did on Monday too. So, and honestly, another thing, it's still relatively new. His heel turn's still about 2 months old, so I'm still giving him time, giving him a chance. Because I remember Bayley's heel turn from a few years ago. It really did not get good until like maybe 4 or 5 months into it. So who knows? Maybe by the summer he'll be the hottest heel in the company. I still think that award goes to Gunther, especially from what he did on Monday on Raw. But Cena's, doing the best he can in the role, and I think by the time we get to Backlash and St. Louis, he's going to be despised. I cannot wait to hear the reaction he gets that night. It's going to mirror what he got at, One Night Stand 2006 or Money in the Bank 2011. I think it's going to be very up there on that level with those matches. And just to see him in that setting, actually being a heel and actually doing heel things, yeah, take my money right now.
I think Randy Orton is a really good opponent for Cena following Cody. Cody started getting booed, and Cena gets this weird, we're here to do the communal experience chants. I want to say I was there to chant, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. They're chanting both, as Cena pointed out. One thing I like about Cena is he is telling the truth. Like, I mean, a lot of what he says, and I mean, say what you will about what Rock said and whether that's helpful, but Cena is telling, I mean, I think there's, I don't know this, but I think it's part of Cena that thinks he did help raise a generation of kids and that parents weren't doing their job. I could totally see him thinking that. Why do you need me as a role model? Just like you take your kids to a WWE show twice a year and they buy a t-shirt and I'm the one who's supposed to inspire them to pursue their dreams. What about you? Drop whatever you're doing and be a better parent. I could imagine that maybe being a thing he's thought over the years. I don't know either way, but it fits it's believable part of his current character. And I wish that we got a timestamp for when he went from appreciating the fans to resenting them. I think that's a really key missing element to this that would really make it more believable. When did it creep up on you over the years, but you repressed it and then it surfaced, or did it suddenly hit you at one time? He's kind of danced around it a little bit, but that aspect is still missing. But what's good is he's a legend who people appreciate in sort of a meta way. There's a nostalgia for him. And because pro wrestling's so open compared to past eras and about, we're all performers and we're not necessarily what you see on TV isn't necessarily reflective of who we really are. I think they go further than they should in that regard. Stand-up comedy are good at protecting their personas, even though some of their personas start off as authentic and then end up not being very authentic as they grow and have family or change or stop drinking, but they still do bits about drinking. Stand-up comedians do all kinds of stuff that is inauthentic, but they protect that character because they know people want that authenticity, the veneer of authenticity when they go to a show. I think there's value in pro wrestling doing it. I think they're overcorrecting, going, oh, yeah, it's just all a show, especially Rock, but that's super self-serving, and he's all over the place. But with Cena getting this nostalgia pop and this nostalgia appreciation, Randy's like the perfect antidote for it, especially in St. Louis, because people have always liked Randy for a long time. Obviously, there's times when he got legit heel heat, but Randy has what Cena has, along with being currently seeming to be at peace and saying things that make you want to root for him. Cena's being this despicable guy, ripping on parenting, telling Randy, enjoy your time with your family. Well, you can. If you win a title again, you'll never get to 17 holding this authentic title. I'm leaving with it. I think they've set up, I think, a can't-lose situation in St. Louis. I think the hometown crowd, almost any city would be pro Orton 90+%, but I think they're set it up where there won't even be much of a vocal Cena faction because it's St. Louis's own Randy Orton. So I think the timing on this is good. I don't know if it was smart and they anticipated this or it's just a happy coincidence. But either way, Kurt, I think this is a good match to have at this time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And hopefully Backlash as a whole is better than WrestleMania was. And with this match as the main event, I definitely think it has a lot of potential. Even from what we got in this segment and the segment on Raw, this is already better built than Cody and Cena was for WrestleMania. It definitely has a lot of potential. It could even maybe be a rematch of Saturday night's main event, but just in general, that atmosphere in St. Louis and just having these dudes go against each other one last time with their history, it's going to make for a big major match. It could be one of the biggest main events of the whole year. I don't think Orton wins. I don't think he's the one to dethrone Cena. I think it's eventually going to be Cody whenever Cody comes back. But like I said, this is definitely a main event I'm looking forward to when probably one of the bigger ones we've had in a while, probably since maybe War Games. I would say maybe War Games is probably the biggest main event we've gotten since then. And yeah, it's good that also that Backlash is only 2 weeks away. If we don't have that long 7-week wait between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. It's still 2 weeks away. That's probably why they did back-to-back segments, because they wanted to build to it as fast as possible. So yeah, I have no problem with it, especially from what we saw tonight with the two of them. We got more of an explanation, more of a back and forth. So yeah, they're really building to it nice so far, and hopefully they can continue on that momentum.
Derek Mitchell says the last time John Cena and Randy Orton wrestled each other was on February 11th, 2017 at a house show in New Mexico. So
interesting.
Derek bringing the facts. Standard Deviation said, I don't like Orton opposite Cena as it draws attention to how old they are. I don't think you can run from that. I mean, they've grown up in front of our very eyes as 20-somethings and now approaching 50. And, I mean, I think you lean into it. Randy said it was 25 years ago this summer we shook hands for the first time. I mean, they're not trying to build a company around him. They're just trying to build a stint here in 2025 around Cena as a heel. And Randy being a peer of his, I think works.
Yeah, definitely. Even if Batista would have come back, well, probably not. But by some miracle, Brock came back. Brock and Cena won last time. I'm sure people would want to see too. Obviously, we're not getting that. But the one match I think we definitely need to get with Cena on this retirement tour, we'll probably get is Cena and Punk. That's maybe a Money in the Bank match or a SummerSlam match. But regardless, that's definitely one match we need to get by the time the year is over. But it's just a shame another person he can't work with in this retirement run is Edge, because obviously he's in AEW now. Unless they do some kind of one-night only swap or something. Yeah, that match is off the table. Yeah, I'm just trying to enjoy this, John Cena retirement run as much as possible. I mean, it hasn't been perfect. There's been parts of it that could have been better, The Rock, but he's making it work the best he can. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next. And the reaction he's going to get when he retains at Backlash is also going to be a sight to see.
Derek Mitchell says, tonight's promo Cena versus Randy is the second time in an angle where the mention of not having kids came up. Seth Rollins chastised CM Punk for not having kids. Does that work for a babyface in Randy against Cena? I mean, that's a sense. People make different choices in life. Some people sitting at home might go, well, sometimes I tried to have kids, but I couldn't. There were medical issues. It's dangerous territory to go into if you're Randy. And I was kind of like, oh boy, I don't know if you want to start as Cena put it, parent shaming me. I know they wanted it. It was a bridge to get to Cena saying these are all brats who I raised. So I obviously Cena's fine with it. I'm not saying he was upset, but there's a risk for Randy that some people are going to go, hey, come on now. I don't have kids, but that doesn't mean my life is less than yours.
I can understand that, but I think it worked with Cena because of one, he's a heel, and for two, the fact that he's like been very open over the years about not wanting kids, not having kids, and all that jazz. So I feel like in this scenario, it worked a lot better. And yeah, it just made for a funny segment where like Cena just started chastising the kids and the parents in the audience, and yeah, it just worked perfectly. I'm sure people probably understood that, like when he said that about Cena, he wasn't like referring to them and their personal situation. It's just that Cena's a heel, and anything you can use to attack a heel and attack their character, you use it, and it just worked in this case.
Yeah. Glenn B says Cena should have played into real life, dropped the ring gear and merch, and put on a suit and act like a Hollywood actor, and how he's bigger than this now, which is why he's leaving wrestling fans. Four Eyes Malone, and along those lines, said, for me, Cena's heel turn after he has become a major Hollywood star, and WWE killing the last remnants of kayfabe at every turn makes it less impactful. What do you think about, just stepping back for a second with what we saw tonight, we're post-WrestleMania, post-Cena. What do you think about Glenn's idea of Cena should come back in a suit, drop the merch and there's a little bit of sort of a real life heat that he's like turned heel, but he's still hawking merchandise. He's pretending he's not, but he actually obviously transparently still wants that cut of merch, and it's still for sale. Maybe they pre-printed all the stuff and he just doesn't want to be wasteful. But the idea of him really changing his look and being very Hollywood corporate in a suit intrigues me. I don't think what he's doing is a disaster, but I get where Glenn is coming from, and seeing Cena present himself differently. I mean, we're not going to get it, and I kind of feel a little cheated out of a different presentation visually of Cena. What do you think about that?
I think he could probably show up in a suit at some point. Who knows? Maybe he has that plan, but he's kind of taking his time with it. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this work before. We've seen it with Nick Bockwinkel. We also saw it with Chris Jericho in 2008 during his heel run. Yeah, John Cena in a suit coming out every week, going all Hollywood, talking about how he's better than everyone. Yeah, that could also work well, but who knows? Maybe he has that, wrapped up. Maybe he has that, planned for some point, and he's just kind of doing this to, I guess, make whatever last piece of merchandise money he can until he goes all in. But yeah, that's definitely something that could work, and yeah, we'll see if he ends up doing it.
One other comment here. George Lane says the Cena run reminds me of why he was exhausting in the You Can't See Me 10 years of PG. It's almost as if WWE is in a holding pattern until he loses a belt and Rock is out of the way. Any thoughts on that, Kurt?
Yeah, I just wish that if The Rock was going to show up and The Rock was going to, be a part of plans, that he would be fully a part of those plans, as opposed to just showing up for a week and a half and then just randomly disappearing and no word of him, no sight of him. I think it was definitely telling when Triple H didn't mention him in his Hall of Fame speech once, and that whole hour-long speech, he mentioned everybody and their mother, but did not mention The Rock, probably the main person his career is most attached to from a rivalry standpoint. Yeah, there's something going on there. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely some tension between them. And yeah, The Rock I hate to say it, he is turning into Hulk Hogan, and that is not a compliment.
I know. All the carny, just shallow BSing, losing all credibility, spinning with a straight face, and not respecting your ability to see through the crap. I mean, it's rough. It's rough. And yeah, I mean, Kyle Fassel says, I feel cheated not having Rock involved. It's not even that you want Rock involved. It's just he is, so finish the damn story that you started instead of disappearing. I mean, he has the power to be at WrestleMania. Whether he asked and was rebuffed and he said, okay, if I'm not wanted, I'll retreat, or if he was waiting for a phone call, which Todd Martin floated as a possibility, which would be hilarious if Rock's like, well, they're going to call me, they need me, and they just never called him. They never called him and asked him to be part of it. Or if he just took his ball and went home when Cody said, no, I don't want to turn heel. And Rock's like, fine, then you don't get me. I'm leaving. Whatever the circumstances are, it'll come out on a Booker podcast someday. My reporting on it, I think, has been pretty accurate so far, because anything that does go public is lining up with what I've been reporting all along over the last year plus on this. So yeah, and my reporting is there's definitely, obviously, tension between Paul Levesque running creative and The Rock, who's never misses an opportunity to point out who he's friends with high up in management. And what a big star he is, including that weird Elimination Chamber biography about what a big deal he is. He has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
CJ LaChapelle, Kurt says Hogan was never this selfish. I disagree with that.
I'll say this: The Rock, like when he was in his prime, when he was like, one of the main guys in the company, he was very unselfish. He used to lose all the time. Like even in 2000, when he was at the height of his popularity, he lost a lot of his pay-per-view matches. And I don't know what happened. Like for some reason, in his older age, he kind of like got more selfish and more grimy. It's weird. It really doesn't make any sense. Like Hogan, for the most part, stayed grimy throughout his entire career, as far back as the 80s, and it doesn't really feel like he ever changed. But The Rock, he was like always kind of so unselfish, giving, would lose to anybody. He like made stars in the process, like Brock Lesnar being one example. And now he's pulling this crap. It's very sad. I feel really bad. I had to write a rap diss about him a few years ago, but he brought this on himself. He's really, rubbed all of us the wrong way. He's done a lot of things to kind of, show that he's more about himself and more about, I guess, stroking his own ego than, doing what's right for whatever project he's a part of. Because it's not even just a wrestling related thing. You're hearing these things about like his Hollywood projects. He has beef with Vin Diesel. He has beef with Tyrese, the whole Black Adam fiasco that turned into a whole mess. So yeah, it's kind of like weird that over these last few years, it's just, you're hearing him in one situation or one beef after the other, and now that's transitioning into WWE. And with him to have the power that he has and to pull these kind of moves, it's kind of hard to believe him, take it seriously, or even take his side. Like that explanation he gave on Tuesday on Pat McAfee's show, it kind of felt like you couldn't have just said this a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And like not get our hopes up, and then you wait till after the show's over to say, "Oh, I wasn't there because they told their story the right way. They didn't need me anymore." I'm like, bro, you were in the middle of the damn segment. You were standing right there with Cena and Travis Scott, and you're not needed anymore. That would be the equivalent to like what we saw on Monday on Raw with Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Heyman, and Seth Rollins disappears and we don't see him anymore.
Totally. And him claiming with a straight face, I was sitting at home surprised to see Travis Scott come out. Oh yeah, like they're gonna use your sidekick buddy in the closing of one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania history, and he's going to be intricately involved, and no one checks with you to see if you're cool with it. I mean, it's just there's so many examples of him just saying stuff that doesn't pass the credibility test. Kyle Fassel said in the chat, the way he even talks now, he seems very in his own world. Glenn B said, The Rock decided he didn't like it and he went home. It's a shame the crowd won't really know the full story and just see him on Pat McAfee, etc., to say he is the brains. I think people saw through what Rock said on Pat McAfee about this being, he went from the Elimination Chamber post-event Q&A saying this was all master plan and we dropped clues and it's 3D chess to, I just got a call and the last second they need to sell some tickets to Elimination Chamber, which may or may not happen. It's not like lacking any credibility. Maybe they wanted a boost, but the idea that, and then I decided, I'll come up with this idea, and then they didn't want to do it, and I'm cool with that. So they did their thing. I would have done it different, but I just left, and I don't want to meddle. It's you can tell, Kurt, how sensitive he is to the public image, what's being said online, and so he's trying to talk his way out of it, but in a way where he's so insulated from anything but yes men now that he doesn't know when he's trying to BS the large mainstream audience. He can't charm and so he's not a big enough celebrity who can just charm people with his charisma and his power into just buying whatever story he delivers. I think the public is onto him.
Yeah, and it's sad because I've always been a fan of The Rock growing up. He always seemed very humble. Yep. I've always heard good things about, people who met him in person. Yep. I actually used to see him at my gym. I used to live in Florida, like around the area he lived in. I used to see him at my gym all the time. Yep. I didn't go up to him, but I saw that he was like friendly to the other people that did go up to him and all that. And yeah, just seeing how he's, acting now, like seeing the things that he's saying, and especially the crap that he pulled last year in the build to WrestleMania, although it turned out well initially, like him, like implementing himself into the match with Roman. Yeah, I'm like, yo, screw this guy. This guy sucks now. And yeah, I never thought I would feel that way about anybody besides Hogan, but The Rock is like really getting there now. The only thing he's missing is saying brother at the end of every sentence.
Yes.
Which is probably coming.
And when I've been around Rock and I've talked with him, super, super nice. And when I interviewed him, he was super, nice and professional. And I mean, it's just, but you become the biggest star in the world, and then you get to be 50-ish, or he's in his 50s now, and you're competing with other people, and your whole so much of your identity is built around maintaining this image, and you're surrounded by yes people, and you have more money than you can manage, and it becomes more of a burden than a bless. I mean, all this stuff, that fame, and and being so in the public eye. I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I think he's a grown man. He should have more integrity and be more forthright and honest in this situation, and meddle less and be more humble and more appreciative and respectful of people who do this full time and not pop in and think you're a big shot and you're gonna make things all better. I'm not erasing any of that criticism, but I do feel for any human being who spends the last 25 plus years becoming this mega famous. I mean, it would be hard to keep your feet on the ground. And some of it's on the people around him who are hangers on, who don't speak the truth, don't hold him probably accountable enough to know when his BS isn't working.
Yeah, and that's a real problem when you have people around you who like don't ever call you out when you mess up or call you out when you do something wrong, and they just like cater to you all the time and like sugarcoat every single thing you do. Yeah, it's not going to make you a better person. It's going to make you think that you can get away with whatever you want and throw your weight around wherever you see fit. But the fans like really showed them last year with the whole rejection of what he did in the storyline heading into WrestleMania, that like, yo, you're not going to pull that stuff on us. We know bullshit when we see it, and we're going to call anybody out on it. And that goes for you too. No matter if we grew up with you, we're fans of you, whatever it was, anybody who pulls that crap, they are getting called out for it. And even Triple H, I feel like, is starting to feel the pressure too and starting to get defensive also. Like if you heard that Peter Rosenberg interview last week where he like said, like, just shut up and enjoy the show. Stop being critics. Stop criticizing everything. Just enjoy what we give you. Enjoy what we give you. Yeah, it kind of feels like, in the few years that he's been running creative, this is like the first real time he's really getting criticized to the degree he's getting criticized, and he doesn't really know how to handle it. And that's why he's responding the way that he is. And I think he said to anyone who doesn't like WrestleMania or who didn't like it to fuck off. I just said, really, man, what's up with this? Like, where is this coming from all of a sudden? But I feel like definitely The Rock and like the whole situation involving him was kind of a reason why the WrestleMania build turned out the way it did, and like kind of certain matches got like thrown around or like thrown together. I would not surprise me in the slightest if that was a part of it.
When he was on Flagrant with Andrew Schultz a couple of weeks ago, he seemed to be in a better place. Maybe the stress of WrestleMania caught up to him a little bit. The just kind of sort of innocuous, but also not reading the room well comments about Trump, and sort of like laughing about what a heel he was at a time when he's like grabbing people, having, ICE grab people off the streets who are here legally and sending them into, foreign prisons and putting them away, and like lack of due process, all that stuff that was going on, around that time. He took some heat for that. So, and then obviously it's tough being married to Stephanie when Linda's in the cabinet, and he's at the inauguration. So in a world that has stayed largely apolitical, non-political, WWE, it was a refuge from that. They didn't even say the word COVID. It was just what they call it, awkward times or uncomfortable times, whatever their euphemism was for COVID. They were just a safe place to go and be entertained. And now with the TKO buyout and the affiliation with Magaland, which is also known as UFC, it people who don't want that, even if people are not left-wing, they just like leave politics out. I don't want to be reminded of that world. And that's creeped in more now. And I think that could be some tension on his part. It also could just be the relentless pressure of WrestleMania season, along with the stress of the whole Rock stuff. And then,
the Hall of Fame too. He was in the Hall of Fame last week too.
Yep. And that's a late night. Had to prepare a speech, talk for a long time. He's good about talking about himself. He has a lot of fun stories. That Schultz interview from a couple weeks ago, I recommended. It was like, a 2-hour plus tour de force through some key moments in his career and all that, and his Hall of Fame speech similarly. But at the same time, he is publicly the creative force of WWE, and they have stumbled a bit this WrestleMania season in a lot of people's view. And then, people are mad at ticket prices going way up, and WWE bragging about how much money they're making, like the common people middle-class people who are going to WWE events and scraping money together want to hear about how rich they're getting. I mean, there's just been some missteps. They're getting a little high on their own supply.
Yeah, I literally saw a picture last week online of somebody's seat at the stadium for WrestleMania that they paid $400 for, and it was like way up there. It was like literally way up there. I'm like, You paid $400 for that? Even Randy Orton, I think, like told a fan, like I think there's footage of this on video that the fan told him they paid like $5,000 for their ticket, and Randy's like, that's ridiculous. That's wrong that you had to pay that much money for that. Yeah, that, and also like mentioning Trump, and also even Roman Reigns mentioning Trump in his most recent interview that he voted for him. I mean, it's their prerogative. I can't tell them what to do. I can't tell them who to vote for. But saying those things publicly, and that combined with the fact that the criticism they're getting for like not pushing the black male wrestlers enough. Yeah, those things combined. Yeah,
he doesn't handle that well either. Levesque, under media questions, he needs better media training because he doesn't have good answers for questions that he should be able to anticipate, Kurt.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, look, I give him credit for the Raw we got tonight after WrestleMania, even SmackDown tonight. I just think that, yeah, that WrestleMania build was, yeah, very hot and cold. And it just really reflected in the way the show turned out in the end. And yeah, it just happens. Sometimes you just have a bad year. Sometimes you just have a bad season. A lot's going on. So yeah, I'm not going to, hold a gun to him or hold it against him per se. But if you don't like something, if something you're not feeling, whether it's a bad wrestling angle, a bad outcome to a wrestling match, or a bad movie or a bad season of a television show, as a fan, as a regular consumer of that, you have the right to call it out when you see those things.
Yep.
And if the people who are making those products, if they get offended by it, if they're, get their feelings hurt by it, then that's their problem. They have to understand if you're going to, take all the praise and take all the people kissing your ass about how good of a job you do and give you a pat on the back all the time, you also have to be willing to take criticism when you don't produce a product that they're liking that much.
Tell you so well said. You can't have a thin skin. You can't want praise and not be willing to take criticism, and you get to judge if the criticism is valid or not. It's up to you. You don't have to take it personally, but when you start telling people, no matter what we offer you, what we feed you, you will eat it and you will like it. I mean, that's not good business. It's not building goodwill. And so, yeah, I do think some of the pressure is getting to him. And he's not handling it great. And he was the darling for a couple years here. He was the anti-Vince. He was succeeding in ways Tony Khan wasn't. PR-wise, he stumbled here and there with a tough question. But there's always good answers to the tough questions he gets asked, and he just fumbles them. Like, Stand and Deliver was a hell of a main event with 3 black wrestlers in the main event. And there is a pipeline of developmental where Paul Levesque can just tell people, you just wait. There's an ebb and flow to who gets on top of cards. There's different reasons people get pushed. And what he should say is, I'm not going to use the lame line, I'm colorblind, I don't see color. That's a bit Colbert did because it's ridiculous when people say it. But he should acknowledge that he's cognizant of it, and they always are working to make sure that over the course of every 2-3 years, there is representation that if you look at a little bit wider through a wider lens, there will always be that representation. And that is something that they are cognizant of and working hard on behind the scenes, and apologize for coming up short in the current moment. I mean, there's just a way to handle that where people go, okay, I feel heard, and I'll give him a chance. And he doesn't do anything close to that. And I think he makes things worse. So yeah, I mean, he's really good at certain things, but that's not one of his strengths, Kurt.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I've definitely noticed a void in like the black male talent on the main roster in recent years compared to like when Big E was around, when Bobby Lashley was around, when Kofi, like when they all had the titles at one point a few years ago, like when Vince was still around. I have noticed a void in that in recent years. I've been doing my best, like, not to accuse them of being racist or accusing of them of like holding back the black wrestlers, because Bianca's still doing well, Jade's still doing well, Naomi's still doing well, and all that. And the talent in NXT seems like they're doing well. I just feel like maybe it's just like a transitional period they're going through. But yeah, that answer, and yeah, combined with what we see on TV recently, and the fact that there was like really no black male wrestlers on WrestleMania besides some New Day, yeah, those things are kind of, they kind of like give off the bad vibe and kind of make you suspicious in a way, not necessarily accusing them of anything, but it is a little suspicious that it is that way. And that, combined with the openly supporting Trump stuff and all that jazz, yeah, it kind of makes you raise your eyebrows. I was even sitting at a table when I went to watch WrestleMania at a bar on Saturday night. It was a bunch of younger kids, and yeah, all of them were saying F Triple H, F Undertaker, F Roman Reigns, because they voted for Trump, they support Trump, all this other jazz. Yeah, they were not having it. And I don't feel on the same level. Sorry about that. I don't feel on the same level as they do, but I kind of see why they feel a little suspicious.
And you have Target, which, as I mentioned, it's like just business wise, Target is struggling because Target capitulated to Trump saying drop DEI, and Costco didn't. Costco's foot traffic is way up. Target's foot traffic, especially with black customers, is way down. There's churches saying don't go to Target. It's not a blackmail thing. It's a set a message thing. And there's stories, you can Google it. Target foot traffic is down for like 12 or 14 straight weeks, give or take, since they capitulated. So it's bad business to get political. And you can say, well, how do you avoid it? If the president says drop this, well, you do what Costco said. It said, thanks, but no thanks. We're on our business, and you run the government. So yeah. All right. Let's go to Jason D from Australia. There's a lot left to talk about,
Jason
Kurt,
D.
but we got to bring Jason D from Australia in. Very eager to hear his thoughts on tonight's show and our conversation so far, if he so chooses. Jason, welcome. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. Thanks, Kurt. Just getting back to John Cena, the comments. See, I really believe in what he's saying, but I feel like the resentment and the bitterness that he feels that might be at a level 3 within him has been turned up to a 10. Because we often hear that the best wrestlers are the one where their real personalities, the volume is turned up. I feel like he's turning up his own real resentment and bitterness that he has towards maybe the fans, the people, parents, maybe even the company. Because when he talks and the way that he looks, he says it with a certain conviction that I do believe him. And I think he's doing a great job with it. Now, as far as him coming out in a suit or changing his look, see, that would make him a hypocrite. The point of his character is that everyone else is a hypocrite. And he stayed true to himself over the years, and the people turned against him. And he's not going to give into that by changing who he is and the way he dresses. So in his eyes, he's staying true to who he is, wearing the gear that he always wears, and everyone else is the issue. So I don't see him coming out in a suit. I just see him being who he is to get his main point across to everyone else. But I like what you said. I think Randy Orton is the perfect person for Cena right now, because Orton's coming from a place of evolving and being very content with his life. And when he came out, it was almost like he was giving Cena, well, he was giving him advice. Like, I kind of understand where you are, Cena. You're a bit bitter. You're angry with the world. I was there 20 years ago, but I evolved. I've got children. Maybe that's what you need. And like you said, Wade, that comment was a bridge to get to Cena having a go at the parents of the children. So this is the right feud at the right time for Cena. So I'm happy with what they're doing here.
So as far as the outfit goes, you're right. The approach he has taken as a heel, it is consistent with him not changing his outfit, the way you laid it out. I think what people crave is approach it differently. Just leave the part out about not wanting to change for the people or be a hypocrite. I think what people are advocating for is have Cena's heel turn involve something different other than the story that's being told. But Kurt, I think he makes a good point about that Cena keeping his music and keeping his jorts and his gaudy colorful t-shirts is part of his defiance, because people booed him and wanted him to change, and this is his way of saying I won't, although I'm going to take away the colorful, back screen, the big screen when I come out.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that promo very well from about a month ago, where he said, "You get nothing. You get nothing. You get no. You get no new theme music. You get no new gear. None of that. You get nothing." So yeah, in that sense, Jason is right. He is committing to that, character aspect of himself, where he said that initially, and yeah, he's giving us nothing that we want necessarily. He's probably not even going to rap. I'm really hoping that he would cut a
That'd be fun.
This on the audience or this on whatever opponent he's facing on that particular night is, but it doesn't look like he's doing that. He's kind of sticking to what he's doing now, because it's exactly what a heel would do in that sense, not giving us what we want. We want a certain version of heel Cena, but he's not going to give it to us because he is a heel and because he wants to be himself, whether we like it or not. And considering that we don't like it and that we're talking about him like this, he is doing his job.
Jason, back to you.
So with Cena, with his heel run at the moment, I am enjoying it and I'm getting more into it. Obviously, we all assume he's going to turn babyface down the line, so I'm waiting to see the evolvement of his character. I mean, we assume that he's going to be a babyface at the end of the year, but that actually might not happen. So I'm interested to see how that actually plays out. I want to talk about the TLC match. I don't know if you caught this at the end, but a nice little touch for me was a shot of Gargano and Ciampa in the corner, and Gargano was hanging onto the hook that was for the tag team titles, as if that was some type of consolation for him that he actually had the hook. That was a great little touch there. And I agree with what you're saying about Tessitore, because Michael Cole's very professional and he does a great job. And I think being a wrestling announcer is very hard. But my only criticism of Cole, and this might be a bit harsh, is that I always feel like I know that he knows he's 1 or 2 seconds ahead of what's going to happen. He's almost too polished for his own good. Whereas at Jim Ross, he felt very authentic, that he was following it and he didn't know what was going to happen. And to be able to pull that off is very, very hard. And I think Tessitore does a good job at doing that, a very good job at doing that. To me, he plays the professional fan where, because he's got that great voice, right at the beginning, you could tell he was trying to balance between being professional and exuberant at the same time. But now he's found that exact mix right now.
I think that's very astute observation. And yeah, the idea of Cole being a little polished and maybe a couple seconds ahead, and Tessitore feels like he's reacting to the moment I think stands out as a real, astute observation of one of the things that it's hard to, like, I think some people are just like, I'm not quite sure why, but Tessitore enhances matches for me. And that spontaneity and that sense of genuine emotion reaction to things. I think he walks up to the line, in terms of advocacy. But it is pro wrestling, and there are pretty stark differences between some of the actions of different in the integrity of different competitors. And I think he walks up to the line, but I'd rather him walk up to it than seem dispassionate or objective in a way that feels ambivalent towards not morals, but like being an advocate for the fact that these matches happen for a reason. We want to find out who the best wrestler is and who should hold the title, who should get a title shot. And when someone interrupts it, it's outrageous. We're all gathered here to find out who the best wrestler is, and anything that gets in the way of us finding out who the best wrestler is outlandish and out of line. And he does come in with that framework, as opposed to, I'm playing a sports announcer and we hope we sports entertain you. Like he comes from real sports, and he knows how to bring that same approach to what is supposed to seem like a simulation of a sporting event. And that should simulate the announcer being really into it and be caring about the sport and the competition. And he does. Kurt, you want anything?
Yeah, like I said before, he's really grown on me ever since he joined the company a few months ago. And yeah, I feel like his voice has definitely gotten a lot better and a lot more like in tune with the product. And tonight was definitely a prime example of like what he can do in an environment like this and with a match like this to call. I feel like his presence is maybe missing on some of the PLEs, obviously, because Michael Cole calls all of them. But I hope he does get the chance to call a PLE in the future and, really show what he can do on that stage. And yeah, it was kind of weird seeing him and Cole announce the show together on Monday. I know it was only for the end of it, but yeah, it was kind of weird seeing the two of them do it together.
You see, and you know what? That's ironic, Kurt, because I really enjoyed that combination of Tessitore and Cole. I kind of like Cole in a special comments position. He's got enough credibility in the years. I really like that dynamic between the two of them. So they're obviously not going to go. Well, I don't know if they're going to go. They won't go there again because they've got their established announce team. But I didn't mind that makeshift lineup. Wade, I wanted to touch on. Obviously, they've got something big here with Jacob Fatu, but with Solo Sikoa. Look, I know people haven't been as high on him, maybe as I have, but in this WWE product where it is so hard to be a heel, I think he's just done a wonderful job, especially with Roman Reigns playing off him. He never got cheered. He maintained his heat. I didn't think he got go-away heat. I think he got legitimate heat. I was never expecting him to be a main event level heel on a consistent level. His job was to make sure that Roman stayed over as a babyface, and he was playing the imposter tribal chief. Now he's moved along to playing opposite Jacob Fatu, an up-and-coming star, and Solo's now trying to take credit. They're already building towards his eventual showdown between Solo and Jacob Fatu. I just think he does a very good job at maintaining heat. And it's so hard to do this because in this era, everyone's cheering the stars, and you sort of alluded to maybe Triple H has given people permission to do that, and it kind of muddies the waters. But Solo is a consistent heel. Nia Jax is a consistent heel, and that's what I like to see. People who get heat, they're not trying to get cheered, they just do their job. And I think he's very valuable, and it doesn't mean he has to be a main event level guy or have main event level matches. He's playing off against main event level people and maintaining his heat. So I feel like he does his job just like Nia Jax.
Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. He is a great heel. It's just kind of weird that for like how much they were building him up last year, how he was in the main event of SummerSlam and those matches with Roman, he didn't even make the WrestleMania card. He just literally came out with Jacob Fatu and encouraged him to go to the ring, and that was it. But now it looks like they're probably going to have a feud at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen just yet because it now seems like from what we saw tonight, they're going to do like a fatal four-way for the next PLE or whenever they do the match. But yeah, I definitely see Jacob and Solo feuding maybe sometime over the summer. And yeah, maybe that'll do something more for Solo where he can show more of his heel side and maybe shine a lot more than he did in those feuds with Cody and in those feuds with Roman, because he was like relatively new in that spot when you really think about it, and that's probably why people didn't really get behind it as much or really find him believable in that main event scene as much. But maybe this feud will be something good for him, and maybe it'll have him come off better to help establish Jacob. But Jacob is as believable and as menacing as it gets, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this title reign comes out. He's great on the mic. He has great energy, great catchphrases, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does over this next year. I even said in my review for WrestleMania for my other podcast that I see him and Braun Breaker possibly being in two of the main events of WrestleMania by next year.
I was going to ask Kurt, what is Jacob Fatu's upside? And let me expand on what you just said, or have you expand on it. Is he somebody who's in the running to be a year and a half from now a bigger babyface than John Cena?
It's a possibility. He has
I meant to say Cody Rhodes, by the way. I interchanged those.
I was going to say.
Because Cena's retired. So then Cody Rhodes. Because Cody Rhodes getting some boos, Jacob Fatu getting cheered. Is the crowd flipping? You could say, is he a bigger star could he be a bigger babyface than John Cena? But that's a whole other discussion about a whole era, and it's totally different. What I mean is, can Jacob Fatu leapfrog Cody? Is Cody on the ropes a little? Paul Levesque talked about this, by the way, in that Andrew Schultz interview, that it's the hardest thing to do is to maintain popularity as a babyface, because fans are rooting for you on your chase, but when you get to the top, they'll get bored with you if you don't feed them heels and change your story. And it is a struggle, and Cena faced that. Roman, of course, had challenges. So yeah, just throwing to you for that. Can Jacob Fatu become the next PLE headlining consistent top babyface?
I don't know about babyface per se. I feel like with him and Cody, it would be maybe kind of more of like a John Cena and CM Punk dynamic, where like he will get cheers and obviously Cody will get booed, but just from a babyface and heel standpoint, there's just two different characters, and it's just weird seeing, it would be weird to see Jacob Fatu as a babyface and Cody as a heel, in all honesty. As great as Jacob Fatu is, I can't really see him as that number one babyface, face of the company doing the Make-A-Wish stuff like Cody Rhodes does and Cena does. I don't see him in that role, but I do see him definitely as a main eventer and as a top guy, and definitely someone in that mix. I would compare him more to like a Batista. That's probably the best way I could put it. I could compare him more to that.
Yeah. They got something that they weren't planning on, which is a very big groundswell of support for Fatu, his authenticity, his fierceness. And I mean, because Jacob Fatu has talked a lot and people have liked what he has to say, and they like his just all gas, no brakes approach. They got something they got to deal with now, which is someone who has to be framed. Again, I do not want to be a babyface matched against Jacob Fatu right now, because Jacob's too over. I mean, LA Knight's got he's not Teflon. People are going to still like him, but man, going forward, you do not want to be in a feud with. I don't want to be CM Punk as a babyface matched against Jacob Fatu. Like, fans would start cheering Jacob and booing Punk, I think, and not like we hate Punk, but I think they'd be more pro Jacob. It'd be embarrassing for Punk. I think we're at that stage with Jacob. What do you think, Kurt?
I really wouldn't want to be anyone matched up against Jacob Fatu. Have you seen the way that guy acts and carries himself? Yeah, no way.
Yeah. But from a crowd reaction standpoint, I think it would be dangerous for any babyface right now who wanted to be cheered if Jacob were still technically a heel.
Yeah, possible. That's why I think a feud with Solo would work so well. Solo would get crazy heat going against Jacob.
Yeah. Jason, back to
you. I agree. I mean, I can't see, I don't see CM Punk facing Fatu anytime soon. I mean, I can see Punk and Roman having to approach Fatu to side with them against this new alliance, because they need some type of person. I can see that down the track, but they've definitely got something with him. Moving on to Aleister Black, he's an interesting pickup for WWE, and I always thought like a character like him, you have to be very careful how you book these type of characters, because of that darkness and the way they talk sometimes in riddles. You got to make sure that their bark isn't more than their bite. So it's almost like you have to continually book them strong, because you found that out with Bray Wyatt before he turned into the Fiend. Bray Wyatt lost a lot of his feuds. But they fell into the trap because he's a good promo, he speaks in riddles, and you've got to think about what he's saying. But eventually he lost a bit to him, because it'd always be like, all right, Bray Wyatt's coming out to talk. Yeah, it's great promo, but we know he's going to lose the feud. He lost a lot of his major feuds, Bray Wyatt. So when you're booking a character like this, you almost have to book them strong, because you don't want, like I said, you don't want their bark to be worth more than their bite. So with Aleister Black, here's the guy that he can't afford to take too many losses, because then the mystique goes away too. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they book Aleister Black and who they put him against.
Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, he definitely has a point because I remember that really hurt Bray Wyatt and also Finn Balor a lot was the fact that they lost so much and that kind of took away a lot of their mystique and also in some ways a lot of their credibility. But with Triple H in charge of Aleister Black as opposed to Vince McMahon, I think this definitely has a lot more potential than, what he had, when he was in the company a few years ago. But just the presentation tonight alone with the entrance, like when he came up from like the seat and then the music, the lights and everything. Yeah, it's just a perfect presentation. I always knew he fit in better in WWE than AEW, but obviously WWE let him go for no reason and worked out that way. But now that he's back, now that he's in this like new position under new management, I think he could definitely be a big player and possibly also a main eventer along with Jacob Fatu. That's a match I would want to see at some point. Jacob Fatu and Aleister Black. Oh, that would
yes.
be great.
And I actually don't even care that much about the face heel dynamic in that one. I just think that'd be a blast. That can be like the exception to what I think should be generally the rule. I'm real curious what Aleister Black is able to do on this run. Being matched against Miz feels like they're setting him up not for a long-term feud with Miz, but just a chance to just dominate somebody who's in a role now of not even being gatekeeper, just being a guy who is obnoxious and gets a pin that gets knocked over. And so, yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm very eager to see like how they frame him and if he is somebody who you can imagine in 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months on the track to being in a PLE main event. Like, are they that high on him? Or does he end up being more U.S. title level where then maybe you do end up like with a Jacob Fatu match, but he doesn't really get higher than that? And then do they understand his character enough and how to present him in a way where people sort of feel like they understand, they have a natural emotional reaction to him that leads them to either root for or against him. And I'm curious, you can't just be a cool guy with cool music who sits in the ring and has tattoos. They got to go beyond that. And I think he's in good hands right now. We'll see. I'm excited to see how this plays out. Jason, back to you.
Well, it's interesting. We know that, he's married to Selena Vega. They had Selena Vega win the US Championship, and then, straight into the next segment, it was Aleister Black. So what this Selena Vega victory over Chelsea Green sort of came out of nowhere. What do you guys think about that?
Kurt, what do you think? Selena's first singles title.
I liked it. I was happy for her. I like, the fact that, she got the win out of nowhere the way she did. And also the fact that she was like, crying and very emotional afterwards. I figured she wasn't going to be like the main women's champion, even in that match in Puerto Rico with Rhea Ripley a few years ago. I knew she wasn't going to win that, but you could like tell she was like genuinely happy to have that moment. So considering that, I'm kind of glad that she at least got to have, the secondary women's title and got to, win it on this stage. And one thing that was kind of weird, she doesn't have her own theme music. They had somebody win a championship and they don't even have her own theme music. She has like the SmackDown theme song, but with that aside, I'm happy. I'm happy for her. I don't think she's going to probably have a long run per se. I think probably Chelsea Green's going to get it back in the rematch whenever they do the rematch, but I'm at least glad that she got to have this. And I'm also glad that she has her husband back in the company working with her, because I'm sure it was hard for them to be separated for all these years and, have opposing schedules, but now they could be more in the same place in the same time.
Brock Benningfield says Vegas should have been built longer with more wins on TV. I thought Tessitore helped put that match over. I mean, he just sold it as like shocking underdog. I think it's a TV story. It's fine. I mean, I think it was a fine move. I mean, at some point you want to stabilize these secondary titles and not have too many title changes. You don't want it to seem like, they're just doing a bunch of title changes for the sake of making shows seem more important and using that as a crutch. But I think having Chelsea Green of all people, I mean, people are going to tune in next week seeing how Chelsea reacts to losing. I mean, that, people are going to be eager to see her throw fits and all of that. So I'm on board. I think it's a good title for her to hold. If you're going to have the title, Zelina Vega's the type of babyface to win it in an underdog situation.
Yeah, the one thing is, do we need to have Byron Saxton interviewing her and just really emphasize how small she? Yeah, it's just can't we have a female backstage interviewer with not wearing any heels? Do we need to really emphasize? I mean, it looked like an adult talking to a little child. Nothing against Selena, obviously that's her height, but just that dynamic, it looked weird and off-putting to me.
They're kind of leaning into that. I mean, that is her. She's an underdog. She's undersized. She's but. I don't know. Yeah, I know it was as striking as anything, and in terms of a height difference with an interviewer and a wrestler. Kurt, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like in that sense, now that you bring that up, she's kind of like the female Rey Mysterio, which is like funny because she said Rey Mysterio was her mentor. They were like in the LWO together. But I think they're running out of female backstage reporters now because apparently Kathy Kelly's training to be like a manager or something along those lines. So we'll see what happens with that. Zelina Vega, I'm very happy for her. You could definitely tell by her reaction that she was genuinely happy with that moment. I know she went through a lot with like her dad dying in the 9/11 attacks and all that. So yeah, I'm glad that she got to have this moment. I don't think it's going to last very long. And I definitely look forward to seeing what Chelsea Green does next week to react to it. Who knows? Maybe she'll attack the announcers like Gunther did.
Jason, what else for us?
So last week I called up and I said I wasn't too keen on WWE on Real. But I tell you what, if it turns into we get to see backstage the reactions to Triple H with what's going on with The Rock, then I'm all for that. Because I'm all in on Triple H versus The Rock. And I love the passive aggressiveness. These two trying to pretend like they're getting along with each other.
Totally.
I've followed them just their whole careers. They are oil and water. They are not the same. The smiles and everything they do with each other. We all know that there is some type of competitiveness there. And if WWE is unreal is about Triple H with his creative team having everything on the whiteboard, then 1 hour later, he comes back and he's got to rub it all out and say to the team, well, Dwayne's decided to change his mind. I'm all for that. Give me creative backstage differences between The Rock and Triple H. I'm in on that. And, the other thing about this, Wade, and I also said that I've been a little bit sympathetic towards The Rock. I find it hard to criticize him due to all the entertainment he gave me as a young person. I'm on board with everyone else now. That comment he made where he said, they called me up because they needed to help ticket sales. You didn't have to make that comment. No. You didn't have to say that. And then he undid everything with this documentary about the change of plans at WrestleMania 40. People were coming out of WrestleMania 40. They were happy. The final boss, people were happy with the creative direction. Yes, you adjusted. Everyone was happy. You didn't have to do that documentary. And then the memes came out of The Rock holding his hands out. People were saying, The Rock changed this and then he changed that. It was a completely unforced error. And I still maintain, Wade, The Rock beating the crap out of Cody Rhodes, then pinning him in a tag match. Cody goes on to win the championship. Could you imagine any booker in any era not then booking The Rock versus Cody Rhodes, given what was laid out? You've got a mega heel who beat the crap out of your top babyface. He then pins the babyface in a tag match. The natural progression is this heel versus the babyface, and we never got that. In any era, any booker would have said, this is ludicrous. We are leaving massive money on the table, and we're not rounding out this story. Just a massive thing, a massive mistake, and it hurt Cody. Cody needed that victory against The Rock, and The Rock didn't need to say on the opening of Netflix that everything's been pushed under the water. We're all happy. The feud's no longer there. Our mothers are interacting with one another. Cody's a great guy. The whole thing was a big mess.
Yeah, it was.
And I'll add to it, we don't need Rock and Levesque racing to see who can be more open with the fans about the inner workings of the business and using that as some sort of tool to try to build up goodwill. What's that?
No, power play. I was going to say power play.
Yeah. I mean, it's like stop competing to be the most open person about the inner workings of the business. Like, don't get in that game.
Yeah. Why? But why I feel like that fans who have never been in the business are starting to have more respect for it. Like, it still feels like they have this insecurity that they have to go out and let everyone know that they know we're just like every other TV show. Yep. There's still this insecurity there that I thought would have gone a long time ago.
I agree.
I don't understand it. I can't understand it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's another thing that did hurt WrestleMania this year. A lot of us probably expected to get Cody and The Rock as probably the main event this year, and then we ended up not getting it. And then, like, when The Rock made that appearance on Netflix, The Rock premiere in January, where we said, me and Cody are friends now. Me and Cody drink tequila together now. Me and Cody are one big happy family now. Yep. That kind of like killed all of our expectations and killed all of our excitement for it. And like coming out of WrestleMania last year after The Rock pinned Cody and then Cody won the title, I'm like, we're getting a Cody and Rock match. We have to get that. But maybe Triple H wanted to do that match and then The Rock pulled out, or like The Rock said at the last minute he couldn't do it, or whatever it was. And it just made for a very underwhelming WrestleMania build this year and a very kind of mixed WrestleMania. And a big part of the blame you could maybe put on that is with The Rock, especially from what he said on Tuesday, and also especially considering that he just came and went. How are you going to come into the build for WrestleMania in the middle of it, show up like in February for the February PLE, and then just disappear after that and we never see you again. So you're going to show up for Elimination Chamber, but not WrestleMania? That makes no damn sense.
I think when Rock said Cody and I are pals, I think Cody could have shown up and said, Rock, just because I, as a courtesy, replied to your texts doesn't mean we're buddies. And if you can't read the terseness of my responses, you're my boss. You're on the board. I can't ghost you, but we're not friends, pal. And I tell you what, let's settle this in the ring, and your tequila sucks. We can't say that. But, like, he could.
It's pretty good, actually.
It would have been nice. Yeah, I think
my vodkas are way better than your tequila.
Yeah. So, I mean, Cody could have just gone, like, I'm sick. I'm playing the game because you are a thin-skinned, power-hungry corporate guy who I know everybody kisses his ass, but I'm done with that. You're in my face. You're whatever. I mean, there was room for Cody to just blast Rock and have fans just get behind him. But he didn't do that. Rock said, hey, sell your soul. And Cody thought about it for 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I think that hurt Cody too.
So, Wade, can I just quickly ask, this timeline, are we to assume that, so The Rock approached Cody to turn heel, Cody didn't want to do it. Was that the emphasis for Triple H then to ask John Cena to turn heel? Like, is that why Cena's turned heel? Like, what was the timeline here?
We're still nailing it down, but yeah, roughly speaking, my understanding, as best I've been able to ascertain from sourcing and hints and public statements even, is the idea of Cena turning heel for his retirement tour was out there. But the priority was, let's just do Cena Cody face. That was the likely route. Then Rock introduced, I want to see Cody to sell his soul to me. That'll be great. And he fell in love with the idea. I think he genuinely thought he was helping with that idea. I don't think it was nefarious or wedging something he knew was a bad idea. I mean, I think he genuinely was excited about, I can be part of WrestleMania, but not wrestle. I don't think he was going to wrestle this year. And I had talked, dating back to late last year, that, Rock would not be wrestling on WrestleMania, but the idea was he'd be at it in some role. And so my hunch is he thought, I want to be part of it. Let's have Cody turn heel. But again, a total disregard for Cody's bond with the fans and messing with a good thing. And as Levesque said a couple weeks ago on that podcast, it's so hard to get a babyface and keep them popular. Rock wanted to come in and mess with that. They had a really good thing with Cody. And so, yeah, he asked Cody. Cody said no. And then I think Levesque went to Cena and said, either before when this was being considered or after Cody said no, just said, Cena, do you want to or not? Like in a night, like, you up for this? I'm up for it if you are. But if you're not, we'll just do face. And I think Cena got excited about it and said, yeah, we can make this work. And they pitched some ideas back and forth and came up with something they liked. So I think it was thought about, on the table, not the plan. But once the Cody heel turn didn't happen, the idea was, can we do something? Cena, do you want to do this? And then he got excited about it. But he picked his own timeline. The idea was he'd turn at WrestleMania. And from what I heard, Cena wanted to turn sooner than that at the Chamber in the same ring when Cody turned Rock down. So for better or for worse, that's how it went. And that's my understanding of it. But if somebody credibly came out and said that's sort of right, but here's a couple things that are a little wrong, I mean, that wouldn't shock me, because I don't think very many people know, because I mean, these are basically in a group text, it's like 3 people. It's that level of private.
So this is the thing, Wade. I like hearing this from you because you're a journalist. I don't need to hear this from the participants.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I get it. Yeah.
They're upset. Well, I don't know. Upset's a strong word, but they don't like it that there are people like you and other podcasts out there discussing the things, and they feel like they want to discuss it because they're actually part of it. And I get that. I get that mentality. But when they start talking about it too much and just so open about it, it takes away the magic. Can't they understand that? Like, there's certain things that should be left to the commentators and the critics and the journalists on the outside. And if they get something wrong, maybe they can come out and say that's not entirely right. But to go through the whole process, do they really feel like they have to do that? It's like they feel like they're missing out on it and they have to do it too.
Kurt, what do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely weird, especially with The Rock called out that dude from Busted Open who, went on the rant about his interview, how he called him out saying like, oh, this is what we talk about. The wrestling business has been at work for years. You should sit in the writing room with us and we can, show you what we do and show you what it's really all about. Yeah, just all of this stuff is just, very strange. And The Rock, just every time he talks nowadays, every time he tries to, do damage control, it just feels like he just does more damage.
Totally. Absolutely right. Standard Deviation said Cena turning heel at Mania would have worked better, as Cody turning down the opportunity to cheat would have hit harder. If Cena turned heel a moment later to win.
Yes.
I'm not sure why Cena chose not to take that route, but in his head, the timeline or whatever, and they just said, well, all right, but and some things would have made a little more sense if Cena hadn't turned right away. But yeah.
And just one last thing. Sorry, Wade. That's the point I wanted to raise. With Cena now vowing that he's going to take off with the championship, surely Nick Aldis would have something to say about this, or even Triple H. I mean, are they happy with Cena just taking off with this most coveted championship ever? And then he's saying the timeline for Randy Orton's going to go back to 1. Surely they'd have something to say about this.
Yes, but I will say I think this is covered in storyline canon kayfabe well enough. Cena has 36 dates, and he says this is how many dates. They're not all wrestling dates. And if I hold the title on through my last date, I don't have to wrestle again. So they could strip him of the championship, which is likely what they're going to do. Like they're going to strip him of the title for not defending it. And then they have to have a tournament. And Cena's going, well, now there's an interruption in the lineage. I have the belt. I want it. I mean, if it's stolen property, you get that aspect of it. But he's basically saying, if I don't lose it, the next champion's just going to be a tournament winner. Now that's happened before. It's like, but yeah, it makes enough sense for Cena to threaten that. I mean, I don't want to be too literal about it. I think Cena's just going, if you don't beat me before I retire, no one's going to buy the next champion. He's saying that. We don't have to buy into that. We can say the lineage is still complete. We can say the champion is legit, but Cena's saying it's not, so you better beat me before that, and none of you will. Kurt, what do you think of that? And then I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, I could definitely see them doing a scenario where they, in storyline suspend Cena because he hasn't been around, and they do like a tournament or a battle royal to decide the new champion, and then that person wins the title, and then Cena comes back with the original title like he never lost, and they could do like maybe a Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 10 scenario where they maybe have a ladder match, and then there's that anticipation where like, if Cena wins, does he retire as champion? Like they could maybe do this towards like, the end of his run, like towards the end of the year. And then for that last match, you like have the wonder, is Cena going to win and retire as champion? Or is this other person going to win and be the actual champion? And you could like really build a good story off of that. And, like a lot of drama, a lot of anticipation, be on the edge of your seat for that kind of match. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Maybe it won't be his retirement match, but they could build that at some point. And yeah, the possibilities honestly for this are endless. And without The Rock in the picture to kind of be confusing and distract everything, and hopefully Travis Scott stays away too randomly, yeah, they could really do some good stuff for this John Cena run with him saying he's the last real champion, he's the last real person to hold the belt, and he's going to retire with it. Yeah, there's definitely a lot they can do with it in the coming months, and hopefully it turns out well.
And Cena's going to lose the title before he retires. So that's a storyline threat, but they're not going to have to actually deal with that. They in real life are control of that, and Cena obviously will drop the title first. He might even retire as a babyface champion. I'm looking forward to, we're not going to like every aspect of it. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on it, and some things will just seem like obvious bad moves and obviously missed opportunities. Fair enough. They have their reasons. Paul Levesque tried to get into that on the podcast a couple weeks ago. And, people don't always know, they want everything when they want it, but there's, reasons that'll never be explained or apparent to the public why we don't do certain things or say certain things. And I've talked about that a lot too. It's like we can have our opinion on the end product, but to say you should do something instead very specifically, and that's kind of the fantasy booking realm, is removing all these other factors that play into decisions that are made and not made that we aren't privy to. And there should be a bit of a humility. You can say everyone should have an opinion on the end product. It worked for me. It didn't. It landed. It didn't land. But in terms of providing a very specific alternative, do it with some humility, because you don't know. And there's some situations where it's just obvious. Maybe don't do so many screwy finishes on television where there's no contest and interference. That's one thing. But to lay out a scenario that you say is better, there's so many things that often play into that where there's reasons not to do it that, sometimes come out and sometimes don't. But in this case, just circling back, Cena's going to lose the title and probably retire as a babyface, and they won't have this problem. But the threat of the problem is what's driving the heel heat right now.
Well, that was my point. I would just like a wrestler to go up to Nick Aldis and say, so if Cena stays champion until the end of the year, he's just going to take off with a championship. And Aldis just to say, well, first of all, it is John Cena, and as a champion, he has the right to call his shot. He called his shot eliminate. Like, all I want is them just to round this out as to why this person would be allowed to leave with the championship, this specific championship, because they have said that this is the championship. It carries all that legacy to it.
Well, I'll throw a political reference in. Trump might be selling Trump 2028 hats, but it doesn't mean that he gets to run for a third time against the Constitution. And he's not going to change the Constitution between now and then in all likelihood. He's tried a lot of things. He might get away with a lot, and this country might be an autocracy by then, and maybe I'll look foolish for saying this. But, and it's sadly not a 0% chance at this point. But selling the hats doesn't mean that frees him up to do it. Cena saying, I'm going to retire as champion, and there'll never be another champion again, doesn't mean that's how fans will perceive it, or how Nick Aldis will treat it, or how Adam Pearce will treat it, or how Paul Levesque will treat it. Cena can say what he wants, doesn't mean that's reality. Same thing as a 2028 hat.
I know.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
And Jason,
not to
I want to address your point, Jason. Sorry for talking over. But in respect to the point you made, I don't think they should explain it overtly on TV. I don't think you want, because the heat is in fans worrying about it. The heat is not, you don't want to explain it away and go, well, there's nothing to what Cena says. Like, the point of doing it is to have fans be in limbo a little bit. The price you pay is, it'd be nice if Pearce and Nick Aldis addressed it. But if they actually did, it might extinguish some of the worry that's driving the heel heat on Cena. Jason, sorry.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And just to put your fears at bay with Trump 2028, he might not be referring to himself. He could be referring to his children. You know that.
Oh God. That doesn't make me feel any better.
Well, that's why.
Yeah. That's.
I know, but you never said it was going to be him. It could be his children.
Right. Yeah. I would just think that his kids would use a different color scheme just to be original. The hats are red. All right. Enough of that. We're here to escape. Thanks, TKO, for causing all this nonsense in our wrestling. All right, Jason, anything else?
I think I covered everything. I like Drew McIntyre, his explanation as to why he'd go for the US title, because, Cena's turned into a bit of a punk. He's kind of doesn't really want to go there, so he's focusing on the baddest dog in the yard, Jacob Fatu. I like his explanation. Drew McIntyre, again, very consistent with his character. You can believe what he's saying in his own world, so thought he did a good job there.
Jason, before you go, who do you think beats Cena for the title? Did Jason drop off?
No, I didn't drop off. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, fair enough. I could hear you thinking.
No, you don't want to hear what I'm thinking. Trust me. No, I'm joking. That's a tough one. You know what? It's probably going to be Cody. And I'm still thinking towards the end of I think they've got a big plan set out here, but I think it is going to be Cody. Cody has to get his revenge. He has to. He has to get his revenge, and he has to grow a spine, and he has to stand up for stuff. So I'm thinking it's going to be Cody. And you know what? Hope it might happen here in Perth in October. Might happen. Cena's got to turn babyface somehow, so maybe they do it in Perth, and it gives him 2 months to December. So we're getting those 3 big events, and hopefully I'll be there for all of them. It might cost me $50,000 for all 3, but I'll take out a loan. That's okay.
Only $30,000. You still got to pay back the loan. I don't know if it's worth it, but I don't know how rich you are, Jason, but if you don't have about $50 million in the bank, I'd say that's pretty pricey.
I'm rich in my heart.
There you go. Thanks, Jason. Always good talking to you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Wade. See ya.
We've got a couple votes in the chat for Punk. Kyle Fassel says, I see Punk taking it from him. Glenn B says, Cena's losing the title at the end of the third summer of Punk at SummerSlam. Then to come back as a babyface will help Punk further down the line in a triumphant return and retirement. Kurt, pros and cons to Punk or Cody or Jacob Fatu? I don't know. Who's a candidate?
I think it is between Cody and Punk. I think with Cody, obviously, he gets his revenge. He's the number one babyface in the company, even if some of the crowd is booing him. And it's just kind of like a way to further establish Cody after, he beat Cody and held the title for as long as he did. So that would kind of help Cody be reestablished again. Maybe the fans will maybe get more behind Cody now that he has to chase again. And as far as the cons of Cody, maybe the fans don't cheer for him as much, and maybe do cheer for Cena despite the way he's acting. And maybe the fans have kind of gotten soured on him. And also another factor, the con of it, maybe the match isn't as good because of what we saw at WrestleMania. Maybe that's just the kind of chemistry they're going to have, and it's going to not be any better in the matches they have in the future. And as far as Punk goes, the pros is obviously he's still white hot. It'll be kind of a nice one last time thing between the two of them. And with SummerSlam being in a stadium, if they do it there, the reaction they'll get, and obviously it'll kind of be like, Punk finally got his revenge for, not being the guy to really take the spot from Cena all those years ago, even though he was selling more merchandise than him and doing certain things as good as he was. And yeah, kind of give like Punk one last title reign before he retires, because he hasn't really had one yet since he came back, and his AEW one didn't work out well. And the cons of Punk is obviously he is older. He doesn't really need the title per se at this point. He doesn't really need to be the one to dethrone Cena in his retirement year. And maybe it just kind of doesn't have like the feel to it that maybe it would have a decade or so ago. But overall, if I had to pick one, it's probably going to be Cody, because obviously he beat Cody for it. And for Cody to get his win back, that would maybe in a way make more sense.
They could try to crown some brand new star, but I don't think they're going to. Obafemi or somebody from NXT. Tiffany Stratton cut her celebratory promo, interrupted by Jade Cargill. They had an impromptu match. It was the first of 2 non-finishes on the show. They think they make up for that by giving you a commercial-free TLC classic. And there's a booking reason for both of the, non-finishes. So be it. They do it too often. You can justify each one individually, but there's too many no contests. That said, what did you think of Tiffany's promo work and Jade Cargill's promo work leading up to the match?
I think they both did fine. I feel like Tiffany's definitely hit a new stride after beating Charlotte at WrestleMania. I really feel like even if the match wasn't the best, her winning the way she did, it definitely put her in that next stratosphere. And yeah, I was kind of shocked that Jade was the one who came out challenger. I thought it was going to be Naomi or possibly Bianca, but then Jade coming out to challenger, I was like, they're going to really do this match at a PLE, but then I saw that they were doing the match, tonight right on the spot. So yeah, it was fine for what it was. They, did their thing for the little time they did. I thought Jade had a few impressive spots, but I think the finish made sense because they probably don't want to beat either one of them right now, especially with Tiffany just beating Charlotte at WrestleMania. So from what I saw tonight, it looks like, the Jade and Naomi feud is going to continue. And I don't really know why it is, but it looks like it is going to. And now after what Nia Jax did to Tiffany Stratton, which makes sense because Tiffany never really beat Nia in a proper rematch. So now they can really go back to that. So, yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if we got a finish, but I'm not mad at the fact that we didn't get a finish because what we saw, he was still fine and established both of them for the feuds they're going to be having in the coming months, which obviously they're both going to win. And who knows, maybe we'll get this match sometime over the summer.
If you're going to do a non-finish to a match, it should be a match you don't advertise between 2 wrestlers where you don't want to see either of them lose, and it doesn't feel like it's a trapdoor cop-out finish, but it's forwarding a storyline or 2 by having heels interfere. It is a template for getting away with it. I just don't think they should go to that more than once every 2-3 months. I think it's just the quantity, you can make a case for it, as you just did, individually, but you can't do it as often as you're doing it without fans divesting themselves of investing. They're not going to be invested in the finish if they're just waiting for the non-finish. And that's a risk, and it does undercut people taking matches seriously. It's one of the issues, too, when someone's going to interfere in a match, so you don't really take the near falls seriously until someone, actually interferes. It's like that's a challenge as a booker, but Levesque doesn't brave book. Like, you could have had Jade Cargill take a fall here and have that be part of her story. Like LA Knight, someone in the chat mentioned that. It was great. He goes, I lost. Sometimes people lose, but I want my title back. I'll beat you next time. How hard was that? Do that more often and give us finishes.
Yeah, but I guess for how much they have invested in Jade and the fact that she was gone for so long and that she just won that match with Naomi at WrestleMania for with the way they were building that angle, maybe they didn't want to beat her either. So, yeah, I get it. It makes sense. And they did the same thing on Raw Monday, although the match on Raw was far better, and I forgave that finish a lot more than the finish we got here. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not really mad at it. I'm just a little bummed that it looks like Bianca's going to be gone for a while because the one thing I was really expecting tonight was for her to officially turn heel, especially the look on her face after she lost the match at WrestleMania and the way she got treated, the way she's been booed lately and all that. I'm like, yep, she's turning heel. She's turning heel. But now it looks like if it is going to happen, we're going to have to wait a little longer.
She can tell a similar story to John Cena, but yeah, now is not the time at the same time as Cena, but it won't be. It could have been. I would have been curious how she differentiated her rationale from her, but I'm glad we're seeing a more multidimensional Bianca. But I don't know how to feel about her because I feel like she's been a little bit all over the place. I mean, obviously the seeds are planted for a heel turn, but she framed it last week as, well, it was a different side of me coming out, and almost, kind of conceding that isn't who she wants to be, but she got triggered. So I thought Tiffany's promo, I asked you, I thought the high pitch at the beginning is something to tone down a little bit. Like, there's just something about taking her seriously and having her present herself a little more seriously and a little bit less leaning on kind of delivering a catchphrase as the beginning and end of her personality. And she's growing in front of her very eyes. I mean, she's not a polished act right now, but she's getting that. And the thing I will say that I liked, even though I thought it got off to a little bit of a rough start with the catchphrase and the Tiffy time thing, which I think I get they lean out on it, but it's just too much. But her saying that she was nervous and it was a lot, but she stepped up and overcame that nervousness, I thought humanized her in a way that I think is helpful for her character right now.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, she had one of the better entrances at WrestleMania. I have to say that's the best way I could describe her, is like she's basically like a living Barbie doll. But yeah, now that she went through that match with Charlotte the way she did, I feel like she definitely has more of an edge. I hope she shows more of that edge in her promos and especially her matches. And yeah, I think like Nia Jax is a perfect first opponent for her coming out of that match with Charlotte at WrestleMania. And obviously she'll finally beat Nia like an official set way, and I'll further build her up in the months to come. But I feel like a feud with her and Naomi, because we got a tease of it a little bit tonight with that face-off they had, that is definitely a destination I could see them doing at some point. And possibly Naomi could be the one to dethrone her, because I have to say Naomi's heel work has been great. Like just her facial expressions, the outfit, the proceed with caution, the way she says all that. Yeah, if there's any heel on SmackDown right now that could dethrone Tiffany Stratton, I hope it's her. Or if Bianca ends up turning heel, hopefully it's her. But either or, I think we all win.
I was a little surprised that Miz seemed totally cool with Carmelo winning the trophy. I expected right away Miz to show signs of jealousy. I think they're going to get there. But, Miz came to Carmelo's rescue. That's what got him eliminated. Then Carmelo won. I didn't expect Miz to seem to be genuinely happy for Carmelo. I thought he would actually there'd be signs of some resentment or jealousy, and we didn't get that this week. Maybe that's because they wanted to set up the Aleister Black match. But any thoughts on the fallout from last week's Andre Battle Royal?
I'm happy that Carmelo Hayes actually won it, because we've talked about it on the show before, how even though he gets a lot of TV time, he always loses and is always made out to be a joke. So I'm glad that he at least got to have that big win. I know the Andre the Giant Battle Royal doesn't really mean much because of the way they botched it with Cesaro all those years ago, but I'm at least happy that he got that. Hopefully that's a step in the right direction. And yeah, it was a little strange that Miz just seemed happy for him, that he was congratulating him and all that. You figured he'd be bitter and sour about it. But I mean, I guess they might be going somewhere with that. I guess we'll see where they are going with it. Maybe next week, Aleister Black kills Miz in 30 seconds, and then Miz blames Carmelo Hayes for it, saying, "Why weren't you out there for me? Why didn't you help me win the match?" Or something along those lines. So I could definitely see that happening, but kind of found it odd that Miz was wearing an all-white tux today. Yeah, that seemed a little weird.
Yeah. Do we have a new merchandise line? Or is there going to be a chain with a giant head medallion for every wrestler?
Maybe he was a groomsman at a wedding before the show, and that's why he came to the show that way.
I'm curious if they actually do market that and sell replicas at I shouldn't give them ideas. That was a weird thing. Okay. Kurt, anything else you want to bring up before we sign off?
As far as, like I said, as far as tonight's show went, I thought it was still good. I don't think it was as good as Raw Monday, but I think it was still a solid show. It gave us a lot of ideas for what we're going to get in the next few months. Obviously, we're getting Cena and Orton. We're probably going to get a 4-way for the United States title with LA Knight, Fatu, McIntyre, and also Damian Priest. Yep. And Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton. Also, Naomi and Jade's going to continue. And we got a great main event tonight with the Street Profits retaining the title. I'm not sure where they go from here per se. Maybe they will possibly turn heel after this, and who knows? Maybe they could feud with that. What was the name of that? Yeah, they
Frazier and Axiom. So they've been doing great work in NXT. People they haven't seen them. There's a lot of excitement about them being on the main roster and treated well, got a vignette and a win. And it looked like they're doing something with Angel and Humberto. So I wish it felt more like they accomplished more by beating Angel and Humberto. But and I hope this isn't just burying them, because I think there's some potential there. But yeah, they sacrificed whatever they're doing with them to make sure people knew Frazier and Axiom are the real deal.
Yeah, they had a good performance, and I think they're a nice addition to the roster on SmackDown for the the loaded tag teams they already have so far. Maybe they might have fit better on Raw because maybe Raw needs them a little more, but still they had a great performance, great match as far as establishing them, and maybe they might be a challenger for the Profits in the months to come.
Excellent. Kurt, tell people to check out your Raw Feud Tracker column too.
Yes, also I write weekly reviews for Monday Night Raw. You could always check those out. I usually drop them every Thursday. I'm gonna be really descriptive about what's going on and the Raw feuds, everything that's going on and whatnot, especially with my review for this week. I pretty much gave every segment this week an A. I don't think I've ever done that in all the months I've been writing these reviews. I think there's only one segment I gave like a B to out of every segment on Raw. So that's definitely been some new thing for me. Also check out the podcast I do with Christopher Adams, the one comparing movies to WWE and different wrestling angle storylines. Another idea we're going to do in the coming months is a episode about Stone Cold Steve Austin's heel turn in 2001 and Denzel Washington's performance in the movie Training Day, which came out that same year, and comparing them both because of how like neither one of them you really expect to see as a bad guy much, and both of them went in that direction during that time.
I love the concept. I love that it's original, and look forward to it weekly. Kurt, you and Chris are great together, and people check that out. It comes with a VIP membership. PWTorch.com/GoVIP gives you details. All kinds of ways to sign up: Patreon, Spotify, through your Apple Podcast app using your Apple account, or through our main sign-up page for the full VIP experience, including unlocking our library. All the details at PWTorch.com/GoVIP. If you know you want to do it through Spotify or Patreon, you can unlock all our VIP shows and get an ad-free version of our free shows with the commercial breaks taken out. Just search PWTorch VIP in Spotify or Patreon, and you can get a 7-day free trial. And you can catch up on our WrestleMania roundtables, my Wade Keller news updates all week this week. Every day of this week was a Wade Keller hotline with news items and a lot of thoughts on Rock and the Paul Levesque interview. I did a 20 minutes or so on that long interview he did with Andrew Schultz earlier today. So you're missing out on a lot by not being VIP. And if you like to support a small business that isn't some big corporate-owned thing, if that is extra incentive, well, you are when you do it. We appreciate your support. Check it out, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Thanks, Kurt. Thanks to Jason, our caller. As always, great conversation with him. And thanks to everyone in the chat, and we will talk to y'all next time.